Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome again to Whiskey Congress. Once again, we're doing a little remote talking. We're both in the state of Baltimore. Steve, where are you exactly? What's that? This is the state of Baltimore. Fuck. You know what? I'm not even drunk, and I'm screwing that up. You're in Baltimore. Yeah. I'm in Frederick. We're both in the state of Maryland.
Yeah, and then I'm in the Inner Harbor downtown.
Good for you.
It's a nice setup. I actually upgraded my hotel. And that had its benefits tonight. Earlier today, this morning, when I was leaving, I was waiting on my Uber, and there was a guy sitting there, and he was having some trouble with his phone, so I helped him with it. He needed to switch his flight on the Southwest app, and I'm pretty familiar with it, as you're well aware. And I got him situated. I hopped in my Uber ride, went on my way, ran down tonight before I got on the phone with you to grab a bottle of water, and the guy sees me he's sitting in the bar. I'm walking past. He calls me in, and to thank me, he gets me a double shot of Maker's 46. So
you're two up on me because I'm kind of in the burbs a little bit, and I'm drinking Rosemount Cabernet. So I'd rather have a Maker's 46, but at least we're both having a beverage.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess we just get right into it, huh?
I mean, we have to. This has been. We recorded on Saturday when everything was going nuts in Charlottesville, and so much has unfolded since then. So we've learned the identity of the woman that was killed in the attack. And her name was Heather Heyer, and she was 32 years old, apparently a very staunch activist, and that, you know, the people that know her have spoken out about, obviously, their devastating loss. I've seen pictures of that attack, and it was disturbing shit. I mean, bodies flying everywhere, and of course, the scumbag that does this is from Ohio.
Well, yeah, he's from Ohio, but...
Well, he's from Kentucky originally, I think, but he lived in Ohio.
And he and his mom had just moved to Kentucky, or just moved to Ohio, Toledo from Kentucky, and then he drives from Ohio over to Virginia and then commits this heinous act, killing Heather Heyer, which is just really sad. It seemed, she seemed to be a really bright soul, and he. I have no idea what happened there, but I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know. It's just really sad.
You do.
Well, yeah, no, I do, but again, like, what drives someone to murder? I mean, I get it. Like,
to murder people, randomly.
You don't know, right? Like that is, it's one thing if. You find out that your spouse is cheating on you or something like that, crime of passion. But this, just random act of violence because, you disagree with the way people think is just insane. I actually wrote about it on our website at whiskeycongress.com. So, see that there.
So things are unfolding. And if we look at Trump, he 3 days after the event. Go ahead.
So I just want to stop you. So when we talked about this on Saturday, my initial thing was this isn't about Trump, right? And I was really trying to kind of bring you around to the point that, I think we would still have a lot of the rhetoric going on that we do now, although it wouldn't be coming from the White House because a lot of it is driven by conservative talk radio. And to your point that you had been making earlier in previous shows, is that group of conservative talk radio hosts are pretty dangerous. And we see exactly what you're talking about through the lens of this weekend and what James Fields did and what Dylan Ruth has done. or had done. So you were hitting the nail right on the head. And so I was just kind of pointing out that I think that, with the likes of the Breitbarts and the Fox News and the Sean Hannitys, that no matter who was in the president, they were going to still push this white victim card and get these people in a tizzy, and it may be even worse with Hillary in office. But Trump, being Trump, not to be outdone, it's almost like he heard me and said, oh, this isn't about me? Oh, I'm going to make it about me, if you want to talk about...
Yeah, so, I mean, if you think about it, he comes out initially and says a bunch of rambling. There's a lot of blame on many sides, which I don't know how many sides there were, but he does that, gets relatively aggressively chastised for that. A couple of his CEO buddies that he had in different councils left him. We can come back to that in a bit. Then he clearly hears the message both from the Democrats and Republicans that, hey, you really botched this. You need to come out and condemn these hate groups. So he comes out and condemns the hate groups, and there was a lot of criticism that it was too little too late, and I think that's a very fair criticism. And when he came out against the hate groups, he looked like a hostage reading a ransom note. I mean, it was none of his typical flying off on his own, waving his arms, passionate, believe me, none of that shit. It was just Nazis are bad, neoconservatives are bad, white supremacists are bad. It was very, very wooden. And then today he comes out and reverses himself again and basically says the alt-left is as bad as the alt-right. There's a lot of blame to go around. A lot of these people were there peacefully under a lawful permit protesting the takedown of a statue of Robert E. Lee. And then he went rambling on about, Robert E. Lee, who's next George Washington, and a bunch of shit like that, which I would love to know that logic or not. So let's just say it has not been a very insightful day for the president. Right before you called me, I was watching Van Jones on CNN, and he was literally just coming unglued. I mean, he's forcefully speaking and eloquently speaking, but literally wiping tears from his eyes. How about he's never felt more betrayed by his government, or by his president, I should say. I mean, this is a fucked up couple days, brother.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, and it's really it's sad, because what you're seeing is just you're seeing all sides really kind of come undone. I mean, the president today just backtracking and doubling down on his original many sides and everybody's to blame statement, and just kind of in a press conference that was supposed to be about infrastructure, the reporters ask him about Charlottesville and what happened, and you see just sort of he can't help himself, and it's almost, and for me with Trump, I have to wonder, I feel like with him it's so much more about just narcissism, right? The fact that you're going to sit here and tell me that my original statement was wrong. It was my original statement. How could it be wrong? It's not wrong. I said that I took it back, but I don't take it back, and I wasn't wrong. I was right, and I'm going to double down on it. And so I think that even if we were talking about, replace, white supremacists and counter protesters with vegetables and cows, I think he just, the idea that people don't like him, and the idea that people are saying you were wrong, you made a mistake, you missed an opportunity, I think that eats at him beyond the actual topic of discussion.
I was going to ask you, I was actually going to try to lure you into that area and say, how much of this do you think is narcissism? So you beat me to that, because I think you're totally right. I think, he's being criticized. He's not used to that. I don't think he's had the silver spoon slapped out of his mouth many times in his life. He's getting stuff yelled at him that he doesn't like hearing. He's yelling fake news back at reporters again. I don't know did you happen to see David Duke essentially say, this is why we supported the president, and he claimed he didn't know David Duke was there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's at least he's no longer denying he knows who David Duke is. I guess that's a step in the right direction in terms of truth. But whether you want to put this on, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I agree with your point, and our point. I guess we both said it, that right-wing radio is a big part of this. But I do think there's a lot of emboldened folks out there because of their guy having defeated the evil Hillary and having gotten to where he is.
Yeah, you really can't deny that. I mean, and the fact that you look at some of these different, websites and I don't know, magazine,
right?
Kind of mini newspapers.
What was the thing you read to me the other day in
the
Ohio?
Daily Stormer.
Thank you. Well, no, not thank you, but I mean, thank you for reminding me, not for making me see that. So it's the Daily Stormer, and in that the statement from, and the Daily Stormer is a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, kind of like a news rag that it pretty much just points out. It gives you the agenda of neo-Nazis and white supremacists. So their statement was, in reference to Trump's original statement, was that, he didn't call them out by name, he didn't attack them, he put blame on all sides, and people need to come together. And so they took that as a win. And again, kind of a thumbs up, wink to them that, hey, you guys are okay doing what you're doing. And that's where that whole emboldened idea and attitude, it's where you can't deny it, right? They're coming out and saying, we are emboldened by the fact that he's in office. Because he's in office, we feel that we don't need to, we're Klan members, which, Ku Klux Klan members are notorious because they wear the white robes and the white hoods with the holes cut out over their eyes. But they're at a point now where they're just like, I don't care. I'm not going to cover my face. What can you do to me? Go ahead.
The president agrees with me and my thought philosophy. So I have no fear, so I don't even need to cover my face anymore.
But this is an organization that hid their identity in the 60s, and now 20 and 30-somethings are walking through the streets of a college town chanting Nazi slogans and racist slogans. And so what do you think about, so a lot of these guys are getting outed on the internet and losing their jobs. Your thoughts on that?
It's very, very simple. Can these guys, should they be arrested for it? No. Government come out and reprimand them? No. But we've talked about this before. Free speech is just that. It's free. You're free to say what you want, but understand that when you say what you want, there can be consequences. Now, those consequences can't be you go to jail for saying what you want, but one of those consequences can be you lose your job for going to a white supremacist hate rally and being photographed holding a tiki torch, doing a Nazi salute, screaming anti-Semitic, anti-black, and non-white people slogans.
But by the way,
that's how it goes.
I don't. Well, completely agreed. I mean, we say this all the time. It's freedom from prosecution, not freedom from consequence. A lot of people made jokes about this, including Michael Rappaport did a video. I don't know if you saw that or not. But the whole fact that these idiots had tiki torches is hilarious in a way.
Right. I mean
so you're going to go.
Are made in fucking China, and it's so like there's the funny thing is that these guys are so they say they're American and they're true patriots, but everything about them is un-American. Right?
True.
You're waving the flag of the Confederate Army that was an enemy of the United States, that an enemy that we beat. You're waving the flags of Nazi Germany, not even remotely close to the U.S., but another enemy of the country that we beat in a war. And then in their own country, to wave that flag is illegal, and can get you sent to jail.
Meaning as in Germany.
In Germany. So, it's just like those are the two most unpatriotic things you could do. Yet they're claiming because they have these two flags and they praise these two groups that makes them more patriotic. It's unbelievable how ass backwards the logic is. And then it's just like they went and they got like just truckloads of tiki torches that are made in China. Right? Like, it's just
and they're designed for what? They're designed for keeping mosquitoes away while you're drinking beer in your backyard in the suburbs. I mean, I'm upset because I keep wanting to put a patio in my backyard, and I might have put tiki torches around it, but now I don't want to.
Yeah, I just tiki's kind of got to be like, damn it, what? Well, you son of a bitch! Why would you guys do this?
Yeah, couldn't you do? Yeah, it looked comical though to see them with tiki torches. Like, we need stuff that burns. We're not smart enough to make anything other than this. Let's go to Home Depot.
Let's go to Walmart.
Well, ironically, the CEO of Walmart is one of the people that condemned Trump. I don't think he left. I think so. Like 5 or 6 CEOs left Trump's, business to government, whatever, manufacturing council, including the CEO of Merck. He was the first one to jump when Trump botched his response on Saturday so badly, and Trump immediately tweets back, now we'll have more time to fix rip-off drug prices, because he's the CEO from Merck, who happens to be a black man. And since then, 4 or 5 others, including the AFL-CIO chairman, have split.
Under Armour, Intel, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, that's kind of a big one. There's a lot of these guys are, I think there's a lot of people who have buyer's remorse when it comes to Trump, when they just see how unpresidential and how bad it is.
Yeah.
And Trump is, he's doubling down on his rhetoric, and he's losing people left and right. Now he's decided to stick with his base, and so his base is kind of banding together even more. But I think there are people who are on the fringe of his administration and his approval of his administration that are definitely starting to defect. Seeing this, the last 72 to 96 hours, I think has opened a lot of people's eyes.
So
as to what I think people were able to deny it for a while, but now it's like it's right in their face, and it's hard to ignore.
So, assuming that your assertion from the beginning of the show is correct, and I do agree with you, that a huge part of this is Trump's need to be liked and his narcissism. Right now, Bannon is really under the spotlight in a negative way. And today, Trump was asked about Bannon and basically said, I like Steve. Steve's a good guy. Steve's a friend. Steve's a nice man. Steve's not a racist. He's the furthest thing from it. And that's essentially like a kiss on the lips from The Godfather. So far.
It definitely.
So if we're updating our Deadpool, Stephen K has jumped to the top of my list.
Fuck you! No way! Because we haven't had anybody fired since the last time we did this, and he was on the top of my list.
Who was mine?
I don't remember, and I don't care. But it wasn't Stephen K. Bannon.
I'm not stealing Steve Bannon from you. No, he's. I mean, so I heard. I think it was on CNN. They said the last 2 guys who said they are nice men and he likes them and considers them friends were Sean Spicer and Reince Priebus.
Yep.
Our 2 most recent winners of the Deadpool, or losers, depending on looking at it.
I think. Well, and my justification for it was that their agenda, they're not really getting their agenda through, and with the healthcare loss, it doesn't look like they're going to get tax reform taken care of anytime soon. The wall hasn't been built, Trump doesn't have many wins, so from a strategy standpoint, they're not doing well. And Trump's,
my pick was Sessions, by the way. Now that I think about it,
yes, and I told you why I disagreed with that because Sessions is charging ahead and doing a lot of pushing a lot of that sort of strong pro-white agenda, and so Sessions isn't going to give up his job anytime soon. The question is Trump going to fire him? And I think now that, with all this happening and the Department of Justice requesting that information on, the people who went to the anti-Trump site and put together the anti-Trump rally, he did come out and condemn that kid and say, and launch a civil rights investigation, which I think that's curious because as cynical as this sounds and as dark as it is, I think it was easy for him to do because the woman was white. I just don't know. It's hard for me to believe that Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions would come out so quickly if everything being the exact same, all the factors being the same. Had the person who died, if there was only one person who died, if it was a black person, I wonder if Jeff Sessions would have come out. I hope he would have, and it's kind of fucked up to say, oh man, that's fucked up. It is fucked up to say, but it also is the climate that we're in, right? We've seen enough and heard enough from Jeff Sessions to say, I don't know if this guy's, I don't know if this is my guy, right? I don't know if this guy is going to succeed.
I've been clear on where I stand on Jeff Sessions, but someone said that when Jeff Sessions beats you to the punch on a civil rights issue, you've got issues. And in the case of Trump, he did that, even if it was because it was a white woman that was run over.
Right. But and listen, I mean, that doesn't change. I mean, it is a civil rights issue. It does need to be investigated and prosecuted as such. But I just wonder if the emphasis from the Department of Justice is the same. If it were, all things being the same, if the victim were black, I don't know.
I don't either, obviously.
Right, and we don't need to play the what-if game, but I mean, I threw it out there. It is what it is. So,
but you touched on something else before that, and I think it's critical because the DOJ is apparently trying to get records and information on people who helped organize the rallies outside of Trump Tower, and that makes me nervous when web providers are being pressured to hand over information about people who are protesting. That sets off my V for Vendetta alarm.
Yeah, that's a scary thing, and you again, it's just this constant, testing to the limits and the parameters of the Constitution, and it's definitely almost. It's not even almost. It's revenge, right? Well, you had a black president for 8 years, and so anything that was, a threat to Obama because he was black got blown up, and so, a lot of people felt the pressure of, being condemned as racist because they didn't like Obama, which wasn't necessarily fair. But so now it's almost just like, well, anything against this president means that you're, a Black Panther.
Black Lives Matter is the favorite target now.
Right. Black Lives Matter operative that's looking to take down the government, which is just so ridiculous. But I mean, it's almost just like, all right, it's a tit for tat sort of. If you oppose this president, then we're going to look at you as an enemy of the state, which is just insane.
It is, but the people who are rallying in the streets and saying soil and blood and crazy Nazi shit, which is exactly what that is, they feel completely justified and empowered by it. So I have never been more disconcerted with like life. Like today, Steve, I went out and I bought a pair of shoes at a DSW in Frederick, Maryland, because I needed a new pair of shoes. And being a white guy with a shaved head and a goatee, I was wearing a West Virginia University T-shirt, and I felt like, how am I being perceived right now? I don't think I've ever felt that before. And yet today I was thinking, like, what is the perception of me? You know, in the store, the racial makeup was roughly 50-50. And, you know, there was a black woman in line in front of me, and she was looking at me, and I felt like, are you, like, uncomfortable with me because of how I look right now? And I don't know, it was just a weird thing for me to have that vibe.
So that's pretty much how most black people live their life every day.
Towards black
people. That's what it feels that for black people. For me to go into a store, I feel that everywhere I go. Every time I check into a hotel, every time I go to a restaurant, every time I go to a store and someone looks at me the wrong way, I have to wonder, do they think that because I'm black I'm a criminal and I may cause them harm, or I'm here to rob them, or I may steal something? That's how I feel every day, white or wrong. So, but
yeah, I mean
and to me that's normal. That's just kind of you. And I'm not saying that so you feel bad and I get a hug. It's just what it is. And you learn to deal with it, and you learn to live with it. I've learned to live with it. So that's not out of the norm for me. So it's like, what's funny, it's almost funny to me. It's like, okay, so, you're looking, people are looking at you, and they're like, oh my God, are you, who and what are you? It's just like, yeah, no shit. Like, that's how it goes.
If I got a dose of your reality today, then okay, I'm not happy about that, obviously, for either of us, but I'm just saying I felt that today. It was
but I guess so. I bring that to your attention because, again, that feeling that you have, that little, wait, this isn't my normal. This has thrown me off a little bit. The problem is that for a lot of those people that we saw marching in that white supremacist, march, protest, whatever, they felt that and they became completely unhinged. And now it's because they felt that, that little feeling for that brief moment, that to them is oppression, and so now white people are being oppressed, and that is the reason for their protests.
I'm not claiming I'm being oppressed. I'm just saying
No. I understand, but that's the relatable moment, right? Like that's the thing that we can take and say, like that's very much part of the problem, right? Is all of a sudden that like you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable in public space, and for so many people, whether it's economic or it's social situations like that, for a lot of white people, they've never felt this before, and so the idea of it is uncomfortable and it's unsettling. And for some people, what we saw was this whole, all right, well, let's just join up with the white supremacists and the Nazis. It seems to be the only logical thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was an identity thing where people said, I'm going to run to a group I feel safe with, and as fucked up as that is, there's probably a lot of reality to that. I mean, I say that with no happiness or whatever, but
right. It's just I just think it's an important part to point out. And it's not an attack on you. It's just kind of like this is
it's honest talk, brother. That's what we do.
Right. So, yeah, I just and it is sad that. So, and what you just said, there's a couple things there, because it's sad that things are changing, but at the same time, those are the type of things that have to change. Like, you need to be aware of how you're perceived in space, right, or in social settings. I have to be acutely aware of how I dress when I go certain places, not because it's a fashion faux pas, but because if people have the wrong perception of me, it could end very poorly for me, right? So I have to think about how I dress, where I go, when I go, what time I go. Where you feel comfortable just going on t-shirt and jeans or t-shirt and shorts or whatever, and just kind of going out at any time of the night to go to any store, and you never think about it. Well, now you have to think about it, and for there to be true equality, then it needs to be equal, right? Like that comfort level, we either all need to have that comfort level or we all need to be uncomfortable, right? Like you can't have it where, hey, Steve, everything is equal. I know you feel really uncomfortable when you go out in public that we're judging you and we're afraid of you and we think that you're a criminal. That's cool, though. I don't think you're a bad guy, but, I don't feel that way. So for there to be equality, either it needs to get to a point where everybody feels comfortable going out in public space and not having to worry about those sort of things, or the other way, which you don't really want it to be where we're all uptight and worried like that, but for things to actually be equal, that's what equality is. So I think ideally we would want to work towards me not having to feel like I'm being judged, me getting to that level of comfort to where you are, right, or where you were.
Yeah. And I mean, I think today was particularly, my ears were particularly perked because I was so caught up in the events of these, the last couple of days. And I take your point that, okay, you've been living with this for your adult life and maybe even your, beyond your adult life. And I mean, I've had obviously uncomfortable situations, whether it was social or racial, or what economic at times in my life, but today just really struck me. Like I was in line at DSW Shoe Warehouse, and there was a black woman in line in front of me, and she was, like looking over her shoulder, like because she was off to the side. Is this asshole going to jump me in line? And frankly, I think if I had, I think she had a ton of venom ready for me. When I did what I would normally do and just said, excuse me, are you ready? She said, she looked over her shoulder and then asked the cashier if she was ready. When the cashier said yes, she did her thing. But I was thinking thoughts today that typically don't enter my normal routine. And you're right. It's not something that I've dealt with my entire adult life. I did feel like I was being looked at as potentially the enemy today. And again, I'm wearing a West Virginia t-shirt with a shaved head, a goatee, and I'm, a stocky, middle-aged white guy. So, yeah, I felt like I was not.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna pull you out of that a little bit and jump topics a little bit. In Trump's statement today, the other side of it was, he was coming out and saying that, it wasn't just the people that were there protesting. Like now, his whole point was the white supremacists were there protesting peacefully, and the counter protesters, they were the ones who were initiating the violence and starting the physicality.
I think he tried to say it was just as bad. So he tried to make it an equal play, even though one side drove into a crowd and killed people, and the other one didn't.
Right, and so that was the point that he was trying to make, and that leads me down a slightly different road. Because whenever you have, over the last 18 months, you had this group called the Antifa. Actually, it's not even 18, probably the last year. You have this group called the Antifa, right? The anti-fascists, right? They're a group of, super far left wing, anti-fascist, almost militia-style group where we really kind of saw them when, remember that Milo Yiannopoulos was speaking at Cal, Berkeley, and there were protests to keep him from speaking.
Right, they were trashing things and lighting shit on fire and whatever.
Yeah, like that was allegedly and reportedly that was the Antifa group trying to keep people out of that event. And eventually it ended up getting the Milo concert or whatever you want to call it, speech, the event, they got it shut down. They were, around when, they started to gather when Ann Coulter was supposed to speak there. We've, at different events, they've been spotted. They're usually wearing dark clothes, combat style boots, pants. They've got, like long sleeve gloves. Their faces are covered. They may be wearing helmets, pepper spray, bats, things like that. I have to be honest. A lot of people are saying, well, they're necessary to stop fascism. I don't necessarily agree. I don't agree that you need that group, that particular group there, to physically start an altercation that can get out of control very quickly with a lot of people that are emotionally charged. I posed this question to a friend on social media, and there's a quote in The Dark Knight where Alfred says to Batman, he tells a story about this guy, and it ends with saying, "Some men just want to watch the world burn."
Yes,
and
that's great. I remember
my thought process is with this Antifa group, I think they want to watch the world burn. I don't think they actually give a shit about black people being killed by police. I don't think they give a shit about women's rights. I don't think they give a shit about gay rights. I don't think they actually give a shit about fascism or even know what fascism is. I think that you have a group of people who have found out that if they label themselves as anti-fascist and they take this name Antifa, it gives them a reason to let out their millennial I'm mad rage. And they go to these different events and they specifically look to start physical altercations, to make things violent, to make things disruptive. I think they're dangerous to the cause. I don't think that they help, because if they're going there and they are starting the physical aspect, they're engaging people physically for no reason. Now,
destroying property too, and
destroying property, harming people. If that's the case, where's the benefit of this group? If you want to tell me that the left needs a certain group of people, right? Like, when you talk about your group of friends, you say you always want to have that guy who gives zero fucks, who will go into a bar and destroy the place, right? Like, you have a way to control him, but if you need him to lose control, you can set him loose, and he's the guy that makes a mess of the place while everybody else gets out. Or maybe that's just me and my friends, and I'm usually just that guy. But either way.
Thank you so much for not making me call that out.
Yeah, I realize.
And I'm talking to him right now, and.
Right, maybe that's not normal, but either way, like you have your bruiser, right, and you have a bruiser or like an enforcer on a hockey team. Way better. Sorry, that didn't come first. You have like an enforcer on a hockey team. And maybe the left does need an enforcement wing. They need a group of people that aren't afraid of guns, right? Like they're not anti-gun. Like they're okay with carrying guns. You need a group that is well trained and understanding certain tactics in case you have your right wing gun nuts who maybe so they can fight fire with fire if it ever gets to that point, right?
I mean, it's the guy who will smack a bully in the mouth and say, "I'm not afraid of you."
Right. And so maybe the left needs that. And I'm not saying they don't. And I think they probably do. It's just not organized. But this Antifa thing, I don't think this is the solution. I don't think this is. I think that they may be causing more problems than they're solving, and I'm not sure what problems they've solved to this point.
And I think
Go ahead.
I think back to your original point, are they truly people who believe in a cause, or are they people who, like you said, want to see the world burn? There's a lot of I think it's worse now than it was 20 years ago. But even 20 years ago, I remember in college, a riot broke out after the Stanley Cup. Since you bring up hockey, I will too, in Vancouver, and there was this riot there. And I'm at the bar, and this dude next to me goes, "Dude, I wish I was there." I looked at him, I'm like, "No, you don't. You'd last 10 seconds." But there's people who believe that chaos is their friend. They're anti everything. You and I, we've talked about them, a few times on shows and a few times just hanging out. There's that group of people that just don't want or don't really have a direction. They just like to be counter whatever, and right now counter whatever turns out to be pro-leftist. So they'll do that because it's cool. And you're right, they don't help.
Yeah, and I have serious concerns because, again, I think that if you want to go and you want to scream at protesters, right, no matter which side you're talking about, okay, fine. But when you talk about, there's something online where, they had put a group of people on that claimed to be Antifa had put out, that people should fill water bottles with urine and throw them at Nazis and white supremacists and try to hit them in the mouth. Well, okay, see, now you've gone too far.
Part of me finds that funny. I'm not a good person.
Right. I thought it was hilarious when I read it, but I'm like, you can't, that's counterproductive. It's it goes against what you allegedly say you're for, right? I mean, because the left will talk free speech, and this is where I get frustrated with a lot of people on the left who are activists and who are, at the forefront, because they want to shut down the other side just completely. It's like, well, you don't agree with me, so you need to be completely shut down and shut out. You shouldn't have a voice. You shouldn't have a microphone. And to me, if you want to beat them, you need to be able to articulate, and you need to be able to listen to their arguments, and you need to be able to counter those arguments, right? And it can't turn into a screaming match or a yelling match, and it can't get physical and violent. Like, you need to be able to figure these things out intelligently, or otherwise things devolve, right?
Right.
And things devolving into just throwing bottles of piss at each other and hitting each other with homemade batons and bats isn't going to resolve anything. And listen, right now, and this is why right now is so scary, is because you have this. If you continue to see these outbursts of anger and violence, and I don't care who starts it, whether it's the left or the right. A guy like Trump, with some of the people that he has in place, you have to worry about them pulling some sort of a martial law type stunt, and all of a sudden now you've got more of a police state than, people like to say we have a police state now. You don't know a police state. You don't know what that really means if you're saying that what we have right now is a police state. In certain areas. I
said we do have listeners in Russia and China, so they might know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like in certain areas, where in urban areas and the projects and things like that, where that's different. And I don't know how many people we have, listening on the south side of Chicago, but that's a little bit different. They can raise their hand and say, I don't know, we see an awful lot of patrols and we get treated pretty shitty. So, but for the most part, if you're living in Columbia, Maryland, you don't live in a police state. If you live in Huntington Beach, California, you don't live in a police state. If you live in
Lakewood, Ohio,
Lakewood or Bay Village, Ohio, you don't live in a police state. If you live in Austin, Texas, you don't live in a police state, and so on and so forth. Right? Like it just you don't. So my concern is, though, with some of the people that we have in power right now, is you get more of these protests and more of these rallies, and things get physical and out of hand, and the president's base is perceived to be under attack. I could see him doing something really stupid, and I could see it turning into something that you would see in a movie, and that's what scares me. That's what truly scares me is he's so volatile, and some of the people around him I feel are very dangerous. Bannon's not gone yet. Sebastian Gorka is still in the White House. And you want to talk about a Sith Lord from Star Wars? Sebastian Gorka is no one even knows what his actual position is, and this guy's got a history. He and his family have a history of hate that is pretty despicable. That it's even allowed near the White House. I just say, like, we need to be careful who we associate with. And a lot of people on the left right now are willing to say, well, I'm willing to ignore the fact that there's a few of them who do stupid things because what they stand for is something that I can accept. But the only thing that I know Antifa stands for is anti-fascism. But yet their actions in certain instances are actually are exactly fascism and fascism. And we have listeners I know that support Antifa, so please, talk to us on Twitter, talk to us on Facebook. If you disagree, or you can explain to me where I'm off track, then please do, and we can have that conversation. But
or email us. I'm Jim at Whiskey Congress. You're Steve at Whiskey Congress. We're at Whiskey Congress.
It is 2017. Nobody gives a damn about email. Come on.
Yes, they do.
Jesus. Email us. Nobody emails. Not on stuff like this. It's okay.
Send us a postcard.
Seriously.
All right, so there's two more things I really want to talk to you about on these same topics. One of them is Jeffrey Lord was fired by CNN, and the other one is Marshawn Lynch's protest. I'd like to take those in order, if you don't mind.
Yep.
So Jeffrey Lord got fired for getting into, he basically went on a rant accusing the left of using Nazi-type tactics, gets into a back and forth with, I think, the CEO, or at least someone high up with Media Matters. He tweets Sieg Heil, and he's fired by CNN.
Just in case you don't remember, Jeffrey Lord he's a huge Trump surrogate. He's been on CNN for the last couple of years, and he will explain away any dumb thing that Trump does, and overblow any good thing that Trump does, with the ferociousness and vigor of a mom, rooting on her kid that's not that athletic, but she believes is a star.
In a 5-year-old soccer league, yes.
Right. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. Some of the, like, this guy pumps up Trump to the point where, he gives Trump credit for things that Trump doesn't even why are you just, I didn't do anything. But anyway, he's not doing it right now anymore for CNN because he got the old boot.
So, you and I talked about this yesterday on the phone, and I didn't have the whole story when we talked. You brought it to my attention, and here's my thought, and I wonder if we'll agree. First of all, I don't think he got fired for tweeting Sieg Heil. I think he got fired for being an idiot over the past several years, and they were tired of him. But I also don't think he should have been fired for tweeting Sieg Heil.
Okay.
And my reasoning, Steve, is just he was in a back and forth. He had used the Nazi argument. That argument gets overused and overstated so often, right? You're a Nazi when it comes to making soup. You're a Nazi. The term is thrown around. I've defended people on they were making a joke thing several times, many times to your dismay. And it's not, I don't even want to call it making a joke. I want to say he was trying to make a point and making it badly and in poor taste. But I don't think he was flaunting or touting Nazi.
All right.
Here we go.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
What did we say about the people who are being fired because their pictures are on the internet because they were at the white supremacist rally? What did we say?
There's consequences. It's. I agree with you. It's not. I'm not claiming this is a freedom of speech issue. I'm saying it was not. I mean, all right. So to play.
All right,
yes.
So let me ask you this. Let's say I tweet Sakaya, and my boss finds my Twitter account, and says, "Steve, what is this?" I was like, "Oh, I was in a back and forth with another developer, and I was saying that they, they act like Nazis.
They're building code Nazi
market, and he pissed me off, and so to get under his skin, I was like, well, you're a Nazi," and I tweeted Sagat. Well, my boss is Jewish, and he may not appreciate that, and I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't. And I'm pretty sure that he would fire me. And I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have a fucking argument as to I would never do it. But once he fired me, I wouldn't say, but I was just trying to make a point. I was just trying to be. I was making a joke. I was being sarcastic. I was trying to be funny. However you want to spin it, he'd say, okay, well, you did. I find it patently offensive, and you're fired. If that's how you want to be funny, if that's the type of sarcasm that you're going to put out there for the world to see, and you represent me and my company, and people know your name and they associate your face with my company, then you can take your Nazi sarcasm and you can go get paid somewhere else.
I mean, what you just said is not wrong in any way. I'm not saying Jeffrey Lord has cause for a lawsuit. What you just said was very well framed, and so Marshawn Lynch.
Punt!
It's 3rd and 28. I'm not liking this.
Punt!
No, you're not. What you said was not wrong at all. It was very well framed. I'm not saying CNN didn't have a right to do it. I'm not. The only point I will make is, and maybe this is not the right place to draw a line, is that at some point you can't. What's that?
No, go ahead.
At some point we're going to be word policing people to a point that it becomes ridiculous.
We're not word policing to the point that it becomes ridiculous. Jeffrey Lord, over the last 2 years, has said a ton of ridiculous things that they've allowed
that's
to
fair.
go through.
I agree with you on that.
Right?
If you'd been fired 2 years ago, I would have said, yeah, good point.
Right. I mean, he said a lot of dumb shit, a lot of stupid, a lot of stuff that's clearly not true or accurate.
Yeah.
And what CNN said was the line in the sand is when you use Nazi phrasing. Listen, Chip, we fought a war to prevent the spread of this idea of Nazism. We said this is so dangerous, this is so evil that we are going to go and get involved in a war that we have nothing to do with right now because that's how dangerous it is. I know that's not completely true. I mean, Japan jumped us into that war.
Did bomb us first, and they were allied, but yes.
But still, we fought that war on multiple fronts.
Yeah.
Right? We fought that war for a specific reason. Right? Germany said you can't say that. The birthplace of that phrase said, do not say those words again. It is a crime.
And
so, pardon me if a media organization says, you know what? If you're going to use that type of language, then you don't work for us anymore because we don't want to be associated with something that's so evil and so vile. Our country fought a war to make sure it didn't spread. And now what you're saying is, well, that type of language should be okay because we're too PC and people are too sensitive. I'm sorry, we're not too sensitive. We're sensitive to this because we should be.
So Marshawn Lynch. No, you're look. I'm not. This is not where I will dig in and say this is wrong because I'm a bit. I'm not. I am kind of in limbo. What's that?
Jim, I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, at some point we have to stand for something, right? We have to, and I'm not saying that we don't stand for anything, but I'm telling you that you and I, as partners on this show, we stand for this. I'm pulling you out of limbo and saying, listen, if you're willing to let people sarcastically and casually use this type of language, which literally destroyed a country, destroyed part of Europe,
killed millions of people,
killed millions of people. We lost the soldiers that we lost who fought to prevent the spread of this idea, the spread of those words being used on this land. We stand for that. I'm sorry. We stand for fighting against it. We do, as a show, as partners, as friends, we stand against it. If you're friends with me, then I have to make sure that you are against that.
I'm not supporting.
This isn't free speech, though.
This is back to. If Jeffrey Lord was getting arrested for this, you and I would both object, right?
Yes.
And I'm not mourning that he was fired. I'm just saying, had he not been, I wouldn't be boycotting CNN.
I would.
Okay.
I absolutely would.
All right.
Because that is how it starts. And listen, I can't feign this idea that, oh, he was just being sarcastic, it was completely innocent. I mean, we see right now our president is backtracking and essentially saying, yeah, Nazis are bad, but anyone who opposed them that day, they were also part of the problem and they're also bad, right? Trying to bring a level of normalization to the idea of white supremacy and Nazis, all right? And that can't happen. Right, and there was another article today, and we don't have to get into it, but there was another article actually that I tweeted out either last night or today about the connections between Russia and white supremacy. Right, and it wasn't, and it didn't. The article itself didn't connect Trump and the administration to Russia. The article was just saying how Vladimir Putin and the Russians, right, are fueling this idea of white supremacy and Nazism, right? They start websites, they get on Reddit, they get on social media, they start chat rooms, they start forums, and they spread the ideas, right? They take all the stuff that, they make the memes, they show the pictures, they Photoshop, and they feed this into social media, right? For people like Dylan Ruth and for people like James Fields, they feed it in. And the problem is, if we don't stamp it out when we see it, then it'll grow like an infection, right? Like cancer, it'll metastasize. And before long, no matter how strong or how great we think this country is, just like any other body, no matter how big and strong you are, if you leave cancer untreated or unchecked, it will eat you alive and kill you. And that's what Nazism is.
I mean, I am going to punt on that. If you want to talk about Marshawn Lynch, we can. If not, we can save it for the next show. But I'm not. That was very well said, and I'm not going to rebut that because I don't have a stance that I feel comfortable using to rebut that.
Well, I can't end on that because that's horribly depressing.
It was. It was.
So
what's not depressing is guys who love sausage with Skittles in it.
Beast mode.
Well, yeah. So I mean, look, I'm a Bills fan. Marshawn Lynch was drafted by the Bills. He's always been a weird guy. I mean, he had some issues in Buffalo. He ran over a woman injured but did not badly injure her, fled the scene, may not have even known he hit her because it was pouring rain, whatever. Had a few other incidents in Buffalo, leaves there under bad terms, goes to Seattle, wins the Super Bowl, then does not win a Super Bowl when he should have won 2. Basically went into fuck you mode on the media because he realized there was no good that could come of it. And there
was no good that could come of talking to the media.
Of talking to the media, right. So last week he knelt during the national anthem as a member of the Oakland Raiders and was gone before the media could talk to him in the locker room.
Right. So the thing about this is Marshawn Lynch has done this his entire career. He has not stood for the national anthem, and he doesn't talk about his reasons or motives why. He doesn't really talk to the media. So this isn't quite Colin Kaepernick. Now, obviously, conservatives, right wing, radio, Breitbart, they're all over him, and they want to make him Kaepernick 2.0. I don't think it'll happen because he's not like. The one thing I will say where Kaepernick made mistakes, he made 3 critical mistakes that are fueling this whole argument with him. Teams not signing him, people whether adamantly either supporting him or wanting to see him fail. The socks with the police as pigs, that was a mistake.
That was a bad decision, yeah.
The citing with talking about Fidel Castro, where he wore a Che Guevara shirt, and talked about supporting Fidel Castro. That was mistake number 2 or 3.
Especially when you're trying to go to Miami.
Right. Well, he wasn't necessarily trying to go to Miami, but that was an opportunity that came up, which they're just like, nope, not even going to look at it. So that's mistake 2A and 2B. And the third mistake, I think, was not voting. Because I just think that, now, I don't know where he would have voted if it would. I'm assuming it would have been in California. So would his vote have mattered? No. But all of a sudden, that's when your protest turns a little south for me, because now, the one thing that we do know, no matter what people tell you, is that voting does matter. Voting changes things. Voting is how voting is the reason why I'm able to do a lot of the things I'm able to do freely, because people voted for me to have certain rights and certain abilities that under Jim Crow and in this country in the 50s, I didn't have. So voting absolutely works. All right? Anyone telling you that voting doesn't work means that they don't want you to vote because they want things to stay as they are. So when you don't vote, that's when I have to say, you know what, you fucked up.
So when you call yourself an activist and then you don't participate, it's like, all right, you weren't active enough to get up on a Tuesday.
Right. It's like we know we do the one thing we know about voting. It's the one thing that can impact things. We've seen it done. Now we've seen it done both ways, right? Because people don't vote, the numbers are down. You see people put in an office. You're like, how'd that guy get there? So did you vote? Well, no. Okay. Well, that's part of the reason why he got in.
Right.
So it matters, and I think so. But with Marshawn Lynch doesn't make these types of political statements. Marshawn Lynch does a lot for urban communities and black kids, and it's just like, oh, well, it does it for black kids. Why not white kids? Because the black kids fucking need it. And I'm not saying there's not white kids that don't need it, but there's concentrated groups and pockets of communities of black kids that really need a lot of help.
So he does a lot of stuff in his community, right? He's from Oakland.
Right, he does, yeah, and that's a better way of saying it. He does stuff in his community. And so, like Joe Thomas does stuff in his community. Marshawn Lynch does stuff in his.
I mean, I used to love the Buffalo guys who did stuff in Buffalo, whether it was Jim Kelly or Dominic Hasek or I mean, name the guy who stuck to that area, and the guys I just named weren't from Buffalo, but they established roots there. But anyone who tries to take care of people from where he grew up or she grew up, I don't judge that. I respect it.
Right, and so the point being is that Marshawn Lynch is a different animal than Colin Kaepernick. And the other thing is that Marshawn Lynch, is
kind of a goofball.
He's kind of a goofball, but he's going to be perceived as a more effective player, right? And a lot of that is going to feed into, because they're going to turn around, they're going to hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch and take a year off. He may not be, an 1,800-yard running back this year, but I'm still willing to bet that he'll probably grind out, a 1,200-yard season. Barring that he stays healthy, and if he's healthy and he's productive, and he continues to be silent towards the media, for all intents and purposes, or for 90%, then it's not going to turn into Colin Kaepernick 2.0. The situation. There's too many differences.
All right, so to me, the all-time, like I said, Marshawn's a goofy guy. He did some dumb stuff as a kid, and he was a kid. I'm not going to totally hold it against him. But to me, his anti-media attitude, whether it was, I'm only here because I'm not going to get fined, so I don't get fined, and that was his answer to everything, was comical to me. And the only thing better than that was when he would answer questions in the goofiest ways ever, like, he says, you do the same thing over and over and over and over and over. He said over like 20 times in a row. And he was clearly trying to make interviews not enjoyable for the media to do. And I respect that in the same way, as much as I don't like Bill Belichick, I respect him for saying, I don't want to do this. It's really not part of what makes me good at my job. So I'm forced to by my employers. I'll do it. And I'll give you bullshit slogans and whatever to make you not want to bother me with it. I wish I could do that in my job. What's that?
Yeah, I said Bill Belichick is the worst interview.
He's terrible. But he loves being terrible.
We're just focused on the next week or the next team. And, our quarterback, he played good today. He made some mistakes. We'll look at the tape. I've been coaching for 30 years. I know a thing or two about football, and this team's not very good. Coach Belichick, you just won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I know. And so we'll go back and look at the tape. And, this quarterback guy, we'll get him straightened out. It's Tom Brady, sir. He's retiring. He's probably going to go down as the greatest of all time. Well, that's you. And, I've been a coach for 30 years. That's just Bill Belichick. It's
exactly. But he and Marshawn are kind of the same way. They don't want to be there. Right. They make it plainly known.
Yeah, it's just, and you know what? It's a smart move. But what's amazing is how people dig in, like, oh my God, you're not giving me what I want, so let's hammer you more. Let's put you on camera more. You know what? You give bad interviews? All right, let's put them on 60 Minutes. Wait, what?
And over and over and over and over.
Yes, sir. All right. Here's the deal. I'm hungry. I need to eat again, and I got to be up early. I got to travel across the state. So, not across the state, but kind of at an angle. I got to go up to Annapolis from here. So, let's shut her down.
Let's shut it down.
Wait, so I want, so this episode is going to hit middle to late week. We have a new show intro. Is the show intro going to be on this episode?
It'll be on the previous episode and this episode.
Nice. Let us know what you think of this. Also, when you hear this, you'll still have time. Go on Twitter at Whiskey Congress.
Can I try to stack the vote here?
Because
I'm not happy about this.
For the drink of death. Right now, we have the poll is White Zinfandel, Drambuie, and Smirnoff Ice. We're not taking any additional.
Please write in bookers.
We're, we're not taking any additional add-ons or addendums or anything like that. We got one awful one from a friend of show that I'm not even going to bring up, but I never heard of it before, and when I looked at it, it was actually a YouTube video of people tasting it and just nearly vomiting and dying. So
yeah, we're not trying to kill each other. This is a subtle reminder, not a kick in the balls, right?
Right. I mean, we're hoping it's not something that we need to use often or frequently, but I mean, it's something that brutal. I think it was like octopus ink mixed with like dead deer or something.
Oh my God.
Awful.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm, but no. But
yeah,
yes.
Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone that's voted to this point. Please keep voting. If you haven't, jump in there at Whiskey Congress on Twitter, and it's pinned. So as soon as you go to our profile, it's right there, top front and center. I'll retweet it once a day to kind of get it back in the stream of people's timeline. But right now, I think the last time I looked, Smirnoff Ice was ahead by a few points. So, we'll see how that goes.
This is the ultimate no-win.
Yeah, no, it's not good, bro.
But hey, it'll teach us to speak more carefully.
Yes, yes.
All right. Good night, Steven.
All right, man.
Later, man. Later. Out.